We switched chairs.
I know. Did I put it down?
You like lower and I like higher.
Yes. She was here. All right, let's get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Cuyahoga County Council regular meeting of May 22nd, 2012. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Roll. Mr. Germana?
Here.
Mr. Gallagher? Here.
Here.
Ms. Conwell? Here. Mr. Jones? Here. Mr. Rogers? Here. Ms. Simon? Mr. Greenspan? Here. Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Brady is absent this evening, and Ms. Conley. You do have a quorum.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I move that the absence of Councilman Brady be excused.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that Mr. Brady's absence be excused. Is there any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes
No.
have it.
I'm just kidding. Just getting them back for when I was out of town.
All right, please mark Mr. Brady's absence as excused, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just for the record, that was a unanimous roll call vote.
All right, thank you, Mr. Greenspan. For our moment of meditation, I'd like everyone to reflect on their own personal reflections. All right, going back on the agenda for item 5, did anyone sign in for public comment related to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. Penny Jeffrey.
All right, Ms. Jeffrey, will you come up and identify yourself? And you have 3 minutes. Because mine's high.
Good afternoon. I am Penny Jeffrey, President of the League of Women Voters, Cleveland area. I'm Penny Jeffrey, President of the League of Women Voters, Cleveland area, and I speak for all League members in the county who have just completed a study of ethics, policy, and enforcement. Our specialists have studied the extensive changes to the county provisions in Article 7, and we are satisfied for the most part that this partial rewrite preserves the provisions of the original County Code of Ethics while improving greatly upon its language and clarity. One thing alone disappoints us. League's longstanding principle of transparency is somewhat lessened by the special exemption from conflict of interest disclosure, which this amendment carves out for elected officials only. Others who must recuse themselves from decision-making shall explain the nature of their conflict, while council members may do so. This distinction, while disappointing, is not sufficient to tarnish this worthy amendment, but our League members urge each of you, as our county council representatives, to take advantage of your option to disclose. Those who choose to explain briefly their conflicts of interest in public session will, perhaps even more so than will those who are required to do so, demonstrate their dedication to transparency. We hope each of you, when the situation arises, will make that choice. It will be noticed and appreciated. Thank you for the hard work that so painstakingly preserved the spirit which improved the clarity of our county's model code of ethics, and thank you also for the opportunity to address you this afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffries. Anyone else?
No, Madam Chair.
Item 6, approval of minutes. The minutes have been circulated for the work session for May the 8th and also for the regular session for May the 8th. Is there a motion to adopt the minutes for the work session of May the 8th?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Conwell and seconded by Mr. Greenspan. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes for the May 8th work session are adopted. And also for the regular session, is there a motion to adopt? All right, moved by Mr. Sharon and seconded by Mr. Jimana. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are adopted for the regular meeting of May 8th.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, if we may recognize that Ms. Simon has joined the meeting.
Yes, thank you. She brought coffee for a couple of people, but not everybody. We have announcements for the president, and I only have one announcement. I'd like to point out that Mr. Fitzgerald is going to have a town hall meeting in my district, District 9, on May the 30th at the Warrensville Senior Center on Green Road. So we look forward to participating in that. All right, Mr. Fitzgerald?
My assumption is that the council has heard from me enough, so I'm going to pass on my usual comments.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, committee reports and consideration of motions of council for second reading adoption under suspension of the rule. These are matters that have been to committee, and we're asking for suspension of the rule that we require a third reading. Ms. Simon?
Madam President, I move we suspend the rules.
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded to suspend the Rule 9D, which require a third reading. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The rules are suspended. Item 0017.
Motion number 2012-0017, a motion confirming the county executive's reappointment of individuals to serve on the Cuyahoga Arts and Culture Board of Trustees and declaring the necessity that this motion become immediately effective. The members are Victoria Eaton Johnson and Sari Feldman.
All right, moved by Mr. Sharon and seconded by Mr. Rogers. Is there any discussion on that? These matters has gone before Ms. Conwell's committee, and she has interviewed them and vetted them. And do you have anything to add, Ms. Conwell? Is Ms. Feldman here, or Ms.?
No, I believe Karen Galls Mills is here from Cuyahoga Arts Council. And both of these ladies have been previous board members before. It's a 5-member board, and there's no compensation. And the Human Resources Appointments and Equity Committee would like to ask everyone to allow the women to continue their service on this board.
All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Congratulations to Ms. Victoria Eaton Johnson, Ms. Sari Feldman. Item 0018.
Motion number 2012-0018, a motion confirming the county executive's appointment of individuals to serve on the Cuyahoga County Public Defender Commission and declaring the necessity that this motion become immediately effective. The individuals are Phyllis L. Crocker and Gordon Friedman.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Rogers and seconded by Ms. Conwell, I'm sorry. Any discussion on these two? Ms. Crocker is Assistant Dean at the Cleveland State Law School, and Mr. Friedman is a longtime attorney in the community. I think they've both served for some time. Ms. Conwell, do you have any discussion?
No discussion. Would just like to move these names forward.
All right, any questions, discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it, and congratulations to Ms. Crocker and Mr. Friedman to serve on the Public Defender Commission. Item 10 is a matter for executive session and will be moved to the end of the agenda. Item 11, committee reports and consideration of a resolution of council for second reading adoption under suspension of the rules. We're asking for a suspension of the rules under 9D to waive the third reading. Ms. Simon?
Madam President, I move we suspend the rules.
Moved by Ms. Simon and seconded by Mr. Gallagher to suspend the rules. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, item 0076.
Resolution number 2012-0076, a resolution authorizing the county fiscal officer to create a special project account within the Capital Improvements Fund for the purpose of accepting a deposit of funds in the amount of $211,018.26 from the Soldiers and Sailors Monument Support Group, directing that said funds be appropriated for extraordinary maintenance and capital improvements for the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monument, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Ms. Conwell. I see Mr. Prosty is here from the Soldiers and Sailors Monument Commission. Would you like to come forward and give us a brief explanation, or?
Thank you, Madam President. I wanted to be here, of course, if anyone had any questions. From our perspective on the commission, it allows for us to try and stay ahead of some of the issues that arise from time to time. These funds were raised for the purpose of renovating and supporting the physical structure of the monument, and this ensures will be used that way.
And the money, I think we talked about last year or so, there was money raised for these renovations, but the county also put up, was it $4 million?
Well, I don't think it was quite that much, but
The county put up a substantial amount.
We do appreciate the fact
Right.
that the county took the leadership role, and I think it was in excess of $2 million that the county.
And so this money is, in a sense, repaying the county, but out of respect for the monument and the support group, we're putting in a separate fund, so this money can only be used for the renovations on the monument.
That's right. This follows almost $600,000 that's already been returned to the county from fundraising, and then an additional $43,000 that was been used directly in the monument in terms of its capital improvements.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. If there's no further questions, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Prosty. Consider item 12, consideration of an ordinance of council for first reading and referral to committee, item 0013.
I'm sorry.
We're on 12.
She asked if we were on adjournment.
We're trying to get something situated here. Okay, ordinance number 2012-0013, an ordinance establishing a Veterans Services Fund to provide educational and other assistance to veterans residing in Cuyahoga County, and devoting all unspent monies budgeted each previous fiscal year for the Veterans Services Commission in Cuyahoga County to such a fund.
This matter will be referred to the Finance Committee. Mr. Greenspan, did you want to be heard on this? This was your...
Well,
Your
thank you,
ordinance.
Madam President. This, and I've spoken to a number of members of council about this
Individually.
individually. This is to effectively provide assistance to veterans, to which the Veteran Service Commission, by state law, partly is unable to utilize the funding that's provided. So this is a way for us to be able to fill the void in which the Veteran Service Commission by ORC cannot assist veterans.
So this is the money that the Veteran Service Commission returns to us, and we're going to
Correct.
segregate this and put this in a separate fund if this ordinance is adopted. And then somewhere in this process, we'll figure out some kind of maze in which to assist veterans, possibly scholarship money or various programs.
Or assisting organizations that provide services to veterans.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so this matter will be referred to the Finance Committee so that they can deal with the mechanics of it, and it'll be heard in a hearing at the next Finance Committee. Mr. Miller, when is the next Finance Committee meeting?
Finance Committee will be at its regular time, which is this coming Monday at 1 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can you please add my name?
okay, yeah, Mr. Germain, you can add my name also. Mr. Rogers? And Ms. Conwell?
As a veteran, I better be on there.
Mr. Schrein? All right, thank you. Item 13, consideration of an ordinance for council for third reading adoption, item 0004.
Ordinance number 2012-0004, an ordinance amending the Cuyahoga County Code of Ethics as amended and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Sharon and seconded by Ms. Conwell. Mr. Greenspan, did you want to be heard on this?
I did. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. We went through in committee a significant deliberation on basically a look back on our ethics ordinance, what's worked over the past year, where might there need to be some adjustments to be more in line with actually what's happening on the ground, but in no way, with the exception of the item mentioned in public comment, was there any diminishing aspects to the ethics ordinance. I do have a couple areas just to bring to council's attention. There were a number of items in here. For example, in the definitions, if a definition was not used in the ethics ordinance, it was removed. It didn't diminish the effectiveness of the ordinance. It just wasn't. In one of our previous drafts, there was language that no longer is consistent with the definition, or definition is not required. But just to give you just some highlights of this, under educational training, it's been discussed with the Inspector General with Human Resources, whereas before we had a 15-day requirement for training of employees because the because the initial training is done and the hiring does not necessitate operationally training every 15 days, just every 31 days, once a month. That was one of the items that was put in here. There was other language, and I'll just provide once again some highlights. That I had more in here highlighted than I really wanted to discuss. One of the big items actually has to do with some of the items we were hearing from our contractors and lobbyists, as far as them having to pay the $100 every year and attend training. And what was discussed and what's been incorporated in this amendment is that training for lobbyists and contractors will be every 4 years, and they only need to pay that $100 fee upon the training, which is once every 4 years, since the fee is to cover the cost of training and materials and so forth. The other requirement that was placed in here, though, is on the Inspector General, that every time within that 4-year period there is a change to the ethics ordinance, that the Inspector General must communicate that change to the contractors and lobbyists. So they are still made aware of the change, even though they don't have to attend the training once every 4 years. Those are two of the main areas, and once again, as was heard, the recusal provision was probably the other item that was in here.
All right, Mr. Miller.
Madam President, I also support the legislation. A number of items were made more practical without diminishing the effectiveness, and a number of items, such as the provisions on secondary employment, got clarified. And however, I do agree with the League of Women Voters' concern about disclosure on recusal. I support their position, but this is a piece of legislation that has a large number of provisions, a vast majority of which I support, so I'm going to support the legislation. Thank you.
Mr. Germano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the point that Mr. Miller raises, I raised the question that I believe the Sunshine Law says that you must disclose your conflict. Was that ever checked through the law department?
We did look into it, and it's the Sunshine Law it wouldn't be a Sunshine Law issue, it would be the Ohio Code of Ethics, and we checked actually into both, and that is not a mandatory requirement. Now, a lot of times, certain bodies would have it by their rules that they were mandate the disclosure, but it's not something that's covered by the Sunshine Law or the Ohio Ethics Code.
All right, any other unreadiness?
I would just add to Mr. Miller my support for the League of Women Voters on this position as well.
All right, any other unreadiness? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The ethics ordinance is so amended. Item 14, consideration of a resolution for first reading adoption under suspension of the rules. And the request for suspension of the rules under Rules 12A and 9D only relate to items 82, 83, 84, and 85. 86 is going to be referred to a committee, so we will not be considering that. So do we have a motion, Ms. Simon, to suspend the rules?
Moved, Madam
Second.
President.
Moved by Ms. Simon and seconded by Mr. Gallagher to suspend the rules. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Right, the ayes have it. The rules are suspended as to 82, 83, 84, and 85. Madam Clerk, item 0082.
Resolution number 2012-0082, a resolution amending the 2012-2013 biennial operating budget for 2012 by providing for additional fiscal appropriations from the general fund and other funding sources, for appropriation transfers between budget accounts, and for cash transfers between budgetary funds in order to meet the budgetary needs of various county departments, offices, and agencies, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Move to adopt.
Second.
I moved by Mr. Sharon and seconded by Ms. Conwell. I just want to have one comment on page 42 of your materials. There's a number of items where we're showing some savings, and the one I'd like to point out is $1,116,000 that the county is saving now because the Court of Appeals is now fully funded by the state of Ohio. We were the last county in the, or the only county in the state that was still picking up the tab for some of the employees and the cost of the Court of Appeals. So I'd like to thank the administration and members of Counsel and the Ohio Supreme Court that worked with us to achieve this, because this is a substantial saving. We've been saving money over the last few years, but this is the biggest chunk. So now this is fully funded by the Ohio Supreme Court. Did you want to comment, Mr.
I just wanted to echo what you say. You had support from Counsel on it, and Law Director McCloof, and actually the Ohio Supreme Court Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor took a specific interest in this, in correcting this, and came up here personally, met with folks from, I don't know if she met with you,
yes.
Met with Council President Connolly and Law Director McCloof, and they found in a very tough budgetary times, they realized that this was an injustice that had to be corrected, and they did it very, very quickly. So we owe her thanks as well.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We don't want to forget the judges over the Court of Appeals, or our phones will be ringing tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. They were very cooperative, and the court
As they did the first time.
Yes, and the court administrator, they really worked very hard on it.
They did.
All right, any other points that, Mr. Miller, do you have any other points on this?
Yes, Madam President, this measure contains a number of items where the right amount was budgeted but not placed in the correct sub-funds, and so this was moved around without having any overall impact on expenditure. And with the help of the Court of Appeals item, the overall impact on our budgetary situation is positive. But I did want to ask the director whether there are some individual items included here which were not included in the budget and required us to draw on reserves to pay for them.
Good evening, members of council. Matt Rubino, Office of Budget and Management. We used our first quarter review, which we discussed in the last Finance Budget Committee, to request some additions and some decreases in appropriation. When all is said and done, we factor in some of the smaller increases in appropriation levels. As you recall, for this year, expenditures are still projected to come in under budget. We're looking at right now, as of the end of the first quarter assessment, an operating surplus in the general fund of $4.8 million. So we are not $4.8 million in the general fund. So even with these items, we are not using any reserve dollars to fund these requests to increase appropriation, whether they're general fund and also anything that's a levy impact. We're looking at the same situation where we're actually drawing down less than we anticipated when we approved the 2012-2013 biennial budget.
Madam President.
Mr. Miller?
Yes. Are there any specific items that were not anticipated that we needed to draw down, that we needed to increase appropriations that aren't in the budget?
Madam President, to Councilman Miller, yes, there were several increases requested. We had one in the prosecutor's office. We left out some controlled services. The county executive's budget, where we miscalculated the personnel budget. We had one in Children and Family that was a realignment. Of course, we had the Court of Appeals where we reduced appropriation by the amount of the personnel and fringe benefits. The county still pays a share or funds a share of the other operating costs, of course, but we've been able to avoid the personnel line, which is the largest portion of that budget. And those were the main areas within the operating budget. We have some other grants and projects that are on this particular fiscal agenda, but other than that, we're not drawing additional reserves because we're looking at an operating surplus this year.
Mr. You finished, Mr. Miller? Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. Just to follow on that point, I understand in the aggregate we may not be utilizing any of the reserve as far as dipping below the percentages or dollars, but, and I ask this, if you would in the future put an asterisk or some note on any spending item that was not approved in the budget that we would be voting on, just to notify us that, hey, it wasn't in the budget. We're gonna, if revenue and expenses were flat, we would have utilized the reserves, just so we're aware of these items. That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, any other discussions, questions?
Madam President.
Yes. Mr.
Just one thing
Mr.
that I wanted to add, just on this general, it's not specific to this topic, but I thought it might be germane. As you recall, in the budget process, we had talked about how we had a goal for 2012 to be at another 100 net fewer employees by the end of 2012. And I just got an update from, that's on top of all the 300 plus employees that we were minus net, again, net, not total, net in 2011. And as of the end of April, we were 56 employees down net just since January 1st. So I just wanted the council to know we're going to be on track with a reduction of at least an additional 100 employees on top of the 300 plus employees from 2011.
Thank you.
Madam President, one other item that I didn't mention, Councilman Miller's question, we also had a timing issue with a payment we make to the city's public defender division. That's being made in 2012. It's a 2011 payment that carried over to 2012. That's also on this agenda. That's one other item that I can think of that Councilman Miller specifically had asked about prior to the meeting.
All right, if there's no further discussion, if we're prepared to vote, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The resolution carries. Item 0083.
Resolution number 2012-0083, a resolution amending resolution number 2011-0277, dated September 27th, 2011, which authorized awards on requisition number 20292 to various providers for group health care benefits for county employees and their eligible dependents, including medical and pharmacy benefit management services for the period January 1, 2012 through December 31, 2014, to change the name of a provider from Medical Mutual, LLC to Medical Mutual Services, LLC, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Jemana and seconded by Mr. Greenspan. The way I understand, this is just a change of name, that the name was improperly stated in the resolution, so we're just using this amendment just to correct the name. Is there any discussion on this? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Item 0084.
Resolution number 2012-0084, a resolution authorizing amendments to an agreement and contracts with various providers for Workforce Investment Act in-school and out-of-school youth training programs for the period September 1st, 2011 through June 30th, 2012. To extend the time period to August 31st, 2012, to change the scope of services effective May 1st, 2012, and for additional funds, authorizing the county executive to execute the amendments and all other documents consistent with this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective for the agreement and contracts providers and in the amounts not to exceed as printed on the agenda items C1 through 5.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Ms. Conwell. I see Mr. Gauntner is here. This involves the money that we got from the federal government for summer jobs, and we felt it was important to pass this under suspension of the rules and get this process started. And my discussions with Mr. Gauntner before, that these organizations had gone out on an RFP before, and these were the companies were selected, and so the monies will be flowing through them to provide these summer jobs. Is that correct?
Ms. Connolly, that's correct. Also, Dave Rhines from the Department of Workforce Development is here this evening, and these contracts are actually presented through his department.
So people seeking these summer jobs go through these particular agencies, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the date was extended until what to make application?
The date for the final application was extended through tomorrow, though in the process of filling the positions, the vendors have begun calling in youth, and many of the positions have been filled or are in the process of being filled.
And you just want to give us just a thumbnail sketch of what the qualifications are?
Madam President, if I may, I think your question might be better answered if we called up some individuals who are involved in the program and the contracts, if that's acceptable to you.
Council President, members of Council, I'm Dave Rhines with the Workforce Investment Board. We request your consideration of these amendments so that these 5 organizations can provide a total of about 1,700 youth with a summer work experience. The total amount of the contract will be about $3.7 million for the project. That's a little bit under the total amount available, and I think that's a combination of Tanf funds as well as funds that came from the county, about $250,000 from the county. Employment and Family Services will be the lead on this. They're going to handle eligibility determination. Everybody who participates must be TANF eligible in this program. We're responsible for the fiscal oversight. Because of the late date of notification, we found out about May 1st that we were going to be involved in this. We collectively explored the possibility of using these contracts. Council President, you were correct. These contracts went through a pretty rigorous RFP process last year, and we asked them at the time to include a summer youth component, which they did. Of the 24 organizations that submitted RFPs, we selected 11, 4 to do out-of-school youth, 7 to do in-school youth. All of them included a pretty comprehensive summer youth program as well, and that was one of the items that we evaluated them on. There's 5 organizations that have agreed to participate in the summer youth program, have the scope and the ability to be able to step up their program and expand it to be able to accommodate the additional youth. 3 of them are here, YOU, Tri-C, and LEAP. Of the 1,700 youth that'll be served, about 260 of them will be college students that are TANF eligible, that'll work full-time. The balance of the students will work about 20 hours a week for about 7 weeks in the program.
Okay, is there any questions, Mr. Rhines? Mr. Rogers?
Just one. Thank you, Madam President. To Mr. Rhines. As far as the procedure that these organizations use to accept applicants, is it similar? Do they use the same application? Do they use the same procedures to, as people come in and approach these different organizations, is it the same process used by all, or do they have difference?
It's pretty much the same process used by all. They go through an eligibility determination through Employment and Family Services to make sure that they are eligible for TANF benefits, that they're currently receiving TANF benefits.
So they go through Employment and Family Services first? That's the first point of contact?
I believe we received their applications come through, may have come through a different approach. They might have come through YOU. But in all cases, we have to verify TANF eligibility. Maybe, Joe, you can speak to that.
To the councilperson through the chair, the eligibility process, as Mr. Rhines referenced, is directed by Employment and Family Services, but it's actually carried out by the provider. It's my understanding, too, that Youth Opportunities Unlimited really has a community-wide website in which I believe it to be their primary means of accepting applications. The other programs are generally much smaller in scope and work with more specific populations. Esperanza, for example, while not exclusively to the Hispanic community, really has a focus interacting with the Hispanic community. The LEAP program, which is really focused on employment for disabled youth in this particular occasion, really has a focus on doing that. The contracts, and I will ask Mr. Rines to correct me if I say this incorrectly, the contracts in place through the Workforce Investment Board really put that responsibility on the provider for the recruitment and, in this case, completing the eligibility work that is required by federal and state law. I believe, Councilman, we were talking about this last time, that also these organizations would stand to present their information and their decisions in the event that, you know, the state auditor should look at some of these applications, which they did, I think, 2 years ago, each year kind of rotating their program focus.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
President, just one quick question about Open Doors. What population does that serve? Is it a specific?
Open Doors?
You got a lifeline coming here.
Open Doors.
Ask a friend.
Is responsible. They do
give
some
us
of
your
the
name.
inner ring suburbs.
Give us your name.
Oh, Frank Brickner from Workforce Development. They serve Cleveland Heights, East Cleveland, and East, the city of Cleveland, some of the east side of Cleveland.
All right, Ms. Conwell?
Chair, to the director, just wondering what, number 5, why, is that a typo, or why so much more money for the Youth Opportunities Unlimited?
They'll be serving a lot more youth. They'll be serving about 1,000 of the 1,700 youth. They'll also be serving 250 older youth, the youth that'll be the college youth that are TANF eligible, and they'll be working full-time, 40 hours a week. That's why the contract is that much larger. They've got the capacity to be able to gear up to handle a larger number of youth. That's primarily their major program area.
And just to follow up, you stated that the contracts were, or you were giving it at a short notice, a specific time, and the deadline was extended for the contracts?
We have these organizations under contract to provide services to our youth on an annual basis over 3 years. So their contracts went through June 30th. We would have come to renew those contracts. We're extending this, we're amending the contracts to specifically include the summer youth program and these additional funds that are available.
All right, any other questions? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Item 0.
I'd like to add my name to this resolution.
Jones, please. Conwell.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Miller. All right, item 0085.
Resolution number 2012-0085, a resolution amending resolution number 2012-0060, dated April 10th, 2012, which authorized awards on requisition number 22383 to various providers for emergency shelter services for homeless men, women, and families for the period January 1, 2012 through December 31, 2012, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective. Number 1, Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry to change the time period to April 1st, 2012 through December 31st, 2012, and to change the annual amount from $1,654,920 to the amount not to exceed $1,245,498. And number 2, MHS Incorporated to change the time period to June 1st, 2012 through December 31st, 2012, and to change the annual amount from $1,124,293 to the amount not to exceed $679,838.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Ms. Conwell. These essentially are just changes in the time. So we're actually paying the same rate for the same services, but we reduce the time, so we reduce the budget amount in proportion to the time. So it's actually the same thing. We're just making some changes to the times. Any questions? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Item 0086 is the matter, you want to read it and then we'll refer it to committee, Ms.
Resolution number 2012-0086, a resolution authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1462 with the Brewer Garrett Company for implementation of energy conservation measures in various county buildings in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 307.041 and American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 reporting requirements for the period July 1, 2010 through June 30, 2020, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $1,225,000 and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Yeah, there were some questions raised by Mr. Jones. I believe the administration was in concurrence with this, and we're going to refer this to the Public Works Committee, and we'll have it come up at the next meeting. Item 15, consideration of resolutions for first reading and referral to committee. Item 0087.
Resolution number 2012-0087, a resolution declaring that public convenience and welfare requires replacement of Rockside Road Bridge number 3.23 in the City of Independence. Total estimated construction cost $4 million. Finding that special assessments will neither be levied nor collected to pay for any part of the county's costs of said improvement, and authorizing the county executive to enter into an agreement of cooperation with said municipality in connection with said project.
This may I go to Public Works.
Resolution number 2012-0088, a resolution making an award and requisition number 23213 to Terrace Construction Company Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $2,197,758 for the sewer and lateral repair program for various county sewer districts, authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with said award and this resolution.
Public Works.
Resolution number 2012-0089, a resolution making an award on requisition number 22973 to Perk Company Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $3,212,023.08 for resurfacing, restoration, and rehabilitation of Snow Rockside Road from Broadview Road to Lombardo Road in the cities of Parma and Seven Hills, authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with said award in this resolution, and authorizing the county engineer on behalf of the county executive to make an application for allocation from county motor vehicle $5 license tax funds in the amount of $642,404.61 to fund said contract.
This may I go to Public Works.
Madam Chair, please add my name.
Add Mr. Jimana's name.
Resolution number 2012-0090, a resolution authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 0700-407 with Halley Industrial Park for the lease of Type 1 warehouse and storage space for use by various county departments for the period April 1, 2007 through March 31, 2012, to extend the time period to March 31, 2015, to change the terms effective April 1, 2012, and for additional funds in the amount of $1,562,552.88. Authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
This matter will be referred to our special ad hoc committee on capital improvements, and which will be our next meeting. Is it June the 6th at 11 o'clock? So we'll consider this matter, and this is one of the places that we're going to be going on tour. I believe it's on the 31st.
June 1st.
June 1st?
June 1st.
Okay, this is one of the buildings we'll be seeing on June 1st. All right, item 0091.
Resolution number 2012-0091, a resolution making awards on requisition number 21514 to various providers for residential treatment services for the Youth and Family Community Partnership Program for the period January 1, 2012 through December 31, 2013, authorizing the county executive to execute the contracts and all other documents consistent with said awards and this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective for the providers and in the amounts not to exceed as printed on the agenda, items E1 through 8.
This may be referred to Justice Affairs.
Number 2012-0092, a resolution making awards on requisition number 21516, excuse me, to various providers for residential treatment services for the period February 1, 2012 through January 31, 2014, authorizing the county executive to execute the contracts and all other documents consistent with said awards in this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective for the providers and in the amounts not to exceed as printed on the agenda, items F1 through 14.
This will go to Justice Affairs, and once again, I assume Ms. Simon will inquire why these are backdated. I mean, these contracts have been operating since February, and while we're just getting them now from the juvenile court, so you can inquire when we
will be.
Right. Item 0093.
Resolution number 2012-0093, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Cuyahoga County District Board of Health in the amount not to exceed $553,000 for the newborn home visiting program for the period April 1, 2012 through February 1, 2013, authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
This will go to Health and Human Services.
Resolution number 2012-0094, a resolution making an award and requisition number 22685 to MHS Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $1,034,798 for transitional housing program services for the period June 1, 2012 through March 31, 2013, authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with said award in this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Let's go to Health and Human Services.
Resolution number 2012-0095, a resolution making awards on requisition number 21578 to various providers for various services for the Cuyahoga Options for Elders program for the period July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2014, authorizing the county executive to execute the contracts and all other documents consistent with said awards and this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective for the services and the providers and in the amounts not to exceed as printed on the agenda, items I1 through, or excuse me, 6.
Yeah, 1 through 6. Okay. All right, that'll go to Health and Human Services.
Resolution number 2012-0096, a resolution making awards on requisition number 22613 to various providers for job readiness, job search, job placement, and job retention services for the period July 1, 2012 through June 30, 2013, and authorizing the county executive to execute the contracts and all other documents consistent with said awards in this resolution for the providers and in the amounts not to exceed as printed on the agenda, items J1 and 2.
This will go to Health and Human Services. Move item 16, committee report and consideration of resolution for second reading adoption under suspension of the rules. We're asking for a suspension of the rules 9D to waive the third reading since this has been to committee and been properly vetted. Ms. Simon?
Madam President, I move we suspend the rules.
Second.
All right, moved by Ms. Simon and seconded by Mr. Gallagher. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Right, the ayes have it. The rules are suspended. Item 0079.
Resolution number 2012-0079, a resolution authorizing an agreement with City of Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $2,620,777.24 for reimbursement of eligible expenses for planning, training, exercises, equipment, and grant administration in connection with the fiscal year 2009 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Program for the period August 1, 2009 through June 30, 2012, and authorizing the county executive to execute the agreement and all other documents consistent with this resolution.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Schrein and seconded by Mr. Gallagher. Any discussion? Mr. Gallagher, do you want to be heard on this? This came from your committee.
Madam Chair, this is just a reimbursement.
Right. All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 0080.
Resolution number 2012-0080, a resolution approving a sanitary sewer line vacation and granting of easement agreement with Walmart Real Estate Business Trust, a Delaware statutory trust, in connection with property located in the city of Brooklyn, and authorizing the county executive to execute all documents required in connection with said agreement.
Move to adopt.
I moved by Mr. Jones and seconded by Ms. Simon. Any discussion on this?
Madam Chair, I just ask my colleagues to support this. This easement agreement will allow Walmart to expand their facility. And again, I just ask my colleagues to support this.
Discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 17, committee report and consideration of an ordinance for second reading.
Ordinance number 2012-0012, an ordinance establishing the Department of Information Technology under the direction of a Chief Information Officer who shall serve at the pleasure of the county executive, and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
This matter has been heard in committee, the Finance and Budget Committee, and it will be passed for a third reading on June the 12th. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Miller?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This legislation does three things. It changes the name from Information Services to Department of Information Technology. It provides for the Technology Advisory Committee process to recommend on technology purchases, and it also centralizes the operation under the leadership of the Chief Information Officer. And we are expecting the director to bring us an amendment that we would hear at third reading that would better specify the membership of the Technology Advisory Committee.
All right, so this will be on for a third reading on June the 12th. Item 18, miscellaneous committee reports. Are there any miscellaneous committee reports? We start to the right and go around.
Sure, thank you, Madam President. We, in the Ethics Charter Review, Council Operations and Rules Committee, we have heard in committee all 10 proposals, and we have requested back 7 items for draft resolution to be sent to the Committee of the Whole. We'll be vetting those out, hopefully no longer than 1, but maybe 2 more committee meetings before we'll impanel a Committee of the Whole, and we'll post that schedule here shortly through the clerk's office.
Mr. Miller?
Madam President, when I referred to the Finance Committee meeting being next Monday, it will not be next Monday. It will
We'll be all cooking out and things.
Yeah, it will be at what is also a regular time for the Finance Committee, which would be the following Monday on June the 4th. And at that time, we will hear the legislation that was referred. And also, if I might, I would like to make a few comments in regard to this being Multiple Chemical Sensitivity Awareness Month, if I might. Earlier this year, the Council, with the support of the Executive, designated the month of May of each year as Multiple Chemical Sensitivity Awareness Month in Cuyahoga County. MCS is a disability caused by one major exposure or chronic low-level exposure to chemicals in our everyday environment. Typical triggers include scents, perfumes, cleaning fluids, vehicle exhausts, fence and carpet coatings, and chemicals used with office equipment. Once sensitivity starts, sufferers tend to become more sensitive and are affected by a larger number of chemicals. Symptoms include lightheadedness, dizziness, rapid heartbeat, breathing difficulty, skin rashes, memory loss, anxiety, fatigue, among others. MCS is normally not fatal but often debilitating, leaving one able to work and mostly confined to a protected environment at home. MCS is relatively common. Epidemiological studies indicate that about 3% of our population have a full case of MCS, and 10 to 15% show some heightened sensitivity to environmental chemicals. There is no known cure, but reducing exposure to triggering chemicals helps. We can all help by reducing or being more careful in the use of scents and chemicals in our neighborhoods and workplaces. The more that people are aware of the problem and try to avoid creating environmental triggers, the better it will be for people suffering from MCS. When we passed our resolution a couple months ago, we sent copies to mayors, city council presidents, and school boards in the county, asking them to participate as well. And I'm pleased to report that we've received an outstanding response. Those passing resolutions or issuing proclamations include Bay Village, Beechwood, Berea, Broadview Heights, Brooklyn, Brook Park, Cuyahoga Heights, Garfield Heights, Glen Willow, Independence, Middleburg Heights, Olmsted Falls, Parma, Parma Heights, Strongsville, and the Brooklyn City Schools and the East Cleveland School District. And also several organizations including Beechwood Buzz Magazine, LEAP, and the Ohio American Legion also provided publicity.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anything else? Any other miscellaneous? Mr. Schwan?
Miscellaneous that we all take the time on Monday to remember what the holiday is all about. Go to one of your local cemeteries in recognition of the service members who gave their lives. So if you would just think about that on Monday in between the burgers. Thanks.
Veggie burgers. Yes, Ms. Simon, or anyone else? Ms. Simon?
We will be meeting this Friday at 11:30, Justice Affairs, to hear these particular contracts. And I also just wanted to say to my colleagues, and especially Executive Fitzgerald, that I'll be introducing an ordinance you may be interested in. As you know, the dangerous dog designation for pit bulls was done away with at the state. So that means now these pit bulls do not have a dangerous dog designation. The result of that's going to be, I'm in favor of that on a lot of levels, but these breeders who are otherwise underground breeding dogs for fighting, these particular dogs are going to now be coming out of the woodwork. So I'm going to be introducing a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance for pits and these breeds, because they're going to be coming out and into our shelter and killed in record numbers and posing a threat to the safety of our residents. So that's going to be coming out for us to look at in response to the new breed non-specific legislation.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Jaman.
In response to what Councilwoman Simon brought up, it just jogged my memory that this week happens to be National Dog Bite Awareness Week, something that has been put out, and the Ohio Insurance Institute points out that 1 out of 4 liability claims in the United States is based on dog bites. So it's something important for dog owners, not breed specific, but all dog owners to take proper care. And I do have a news release that I could provide for everyone, but it's a serious problem for people that just do not take proper care of their dogs, in particular around children and around big dogs and small dogs being put together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, just as note that most of those dog bites are from poodles and small dogs, not from the pit bulls. It's ironic, but little chihuahuas.
I'm not getting in this discussion. All right, any other miscellaneous?
Madam President, the public...
Bill is high enough now, I don't need any more. Yes.
The Public Works Committee meeting will meet on, not this Thursday, but next Thursday, May 31st, to deal with the items presented today.
Is there any public comment unrelated to the agenda? Has anyone signed in?
No, Madam Chair, I have nothing.
All right, before we go into executive session, I would like to announce that our next meeting is June the 12th. Do we have any, when we have the work session before that on the casino money ordinance, right? Committee of the Whole. So that'll be before that, 3 o'clock on the 12th. At this time, we need to go back to item 10 on the agenda. You want to read that first, and then we'll make a motion to go into executive session?
Madam Chair, did you want to start out by suspension?
Yeah, do we need first of all, we need to start by a motion to suspend the rules 12A and 9D. Ms. Simon?
Suspend the rules, Madam President.
Second.
Moved and seconded to suspend the rules. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The rules are suspended. I can read the item.
Resolution number 2012-0081, a resolution authorizing employment of the law firm of Baker and Hostetler in the amount not to exceed $745,000 for legal services in connection with United States District Court, Northern District of Ohio, case number 1:11 CV 933. Ambrosio versus Marino et al. In accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 305.14 and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Okay, all meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Meetings Law. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a regular meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, council confers outside the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive sessions. All decisions are made in public. This evening, council will go into executive session to discuss the pending litigation as set forth in the motion. During this time, our live stream will be down, and we will be asked all those who are not specifically involved in the executive session to leave the room. Anyone may re-enter the meeting after the end of our executive session, at which time we will be taking a vote on this matter. Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation?
President, I move we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation.
Ms. Simon and seconded by Mr. Gallagher. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Moving to executive session and calling the roll, Mr. Germana?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell? Yes. Mr. Jones? Yes. Mr. Rogers? Yes. Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Brady is absent this evening, and Ms. Conley?
Yes. All right, the ayes have it. We'll go into executive session, and those who are not directly involved, please leave the room, and you'll be invited back in when we complete. And who's staying? Mr. McCoop and Mr. Lynn?